So, what is going on here? What is Socrates doing? What is Socrates saying to Meno? I think he's saying this, Meno, you want to know how to get virtue, but you don't know what virtue is. So let's think about what it is before we start thinking about how to get it or how it's gotten, and whether it's something that's gotten by teaching and practice and acquired through experience, or whether it's just some ineffable thing that you're either born with or not. Let's put that aside, because we have to make sure we know what we're talking about. We know what virtue is. So at the very least, he's trying to get Meno to be thoughtful about the nature of virtue and not just be concerned with the question of how to get it. So he's got Meno to define virtue a few times by now. Right? In this last attempt, which ends the reading, the first part of the Meno, where Meno says that virtue is desiring the desire of things honorable and the power of attaining them. What work does Socrates make of that definition? Well, the first part is to break down the first element of it. Right? That is, if virtue is to desire honorable things and to be able to attain them, and let's think about that first one. That it's virtuous to desire honorable things. Right here, Socrates responds and says, there are some who desire the evil. Excuse me. Socrates above that says, and does he who desires the honorable also desire the good? Certainly. Then are there some who desire the evil and others who desire the good? Do not all men, my dear sir, desire good? I think not. There are some who desire evil. Yes. Do you mean that they think the evils which they desire to be good, or do they know that they are evil and yet desire them? Both, I think. And do you really imagine, Meno, that a man knows evils to be evils and desires them notwithstanding? Certainly I do. And desire is of possession? Yes, of possession. And does he think that the evils will do good to him who possesses them, or does he know that they will do him harm? That is, does the person who knowingly desires evil know that those evils will bring harm to him too? And Meno says, there are some who think that the evils will do them good and others who know that they will do them harm. Socrates, and in your opinion, do those who think that they will do them good know that they are evils? Meno, certainly not. Is it not obvious that those who are ignorant of their nature do not desire them, but they desire what they suppose to be goods, although they are really evils? And if they are mistaken and suppose the evils to be goods, they really desire goods. Yes, in that case. So this is a very kind of famous thing that Socrates believed, that no one willingly desires evil. That people only desire evil things if they're in the mistaken they have the mistaken opinion that they're really goods, because all we really desire are goods. Because if we knew that they were evils, we wouldn't desire them, because we would know that they harmed us as well as others, and we would not want them. Socrates considers it would just be illogical. It would be a fundamental logical absurdity to desire evil, to know something is evil and to desire it, to want it, because that would be tantamount to wanting to harm yourself. Now, whether this is a correct doctrine on the part of Socrates or not, it would eliminate that first part of Meno's definition of virtue here, that it is virtuous to desire the honorable, or in what Socrates is equating with the good, and to have the power of attaining it. Well, everybody, according to Socrates, desires what is good or what is honorable. So that would mean that everybody's virtuous? Well, wait a second. Well, what's left then of what Meno says in his definition is, having the power of attaining good things would be virtue. If everybody desires good things, then what makes somebody excellent, outstanding, which is so closely connected with the word arete, the idea of arete, to be an outstanding person. What makes you outstanding then would be the power of attaining these good things. And Socrates has problems with that too. Okay, if we get to that part. Okay, so Socrates gets to that, points this out here. And if one man is not better than another in desiring good, he must be better in the power of attaining it. Meno, exactly. Then, according to your definition, virtue would appear to be the power of attaining good. That's what's left of the definition. I entirely approve, Socrates, of the manner in which you now view this matter. Socrates, then let us see whether what you say is true from another point of view, for very likely you may be right. You affirm virtue to be the power of attaining goods. Yes, and the goods which you mean are such as health and wealth and the possession of gold and silver and having office and honor in the state. Those are what you would call goods. He's kind of very subtly taking a dig at Meno in assuming that the kind of things that Meno would consider to be the goods, the kind of things that would come to mind when Meno thought of good things, they would be things like money and power and physical health, money and power. Socrates points out something that's just quite elementary when he says at the bottom of page 8, then according to Meno, who is the hereditary friend of the great king, and that's a very obscure allusion to something in Greek history, the great king. I believe that's the Persian king, who is the traditional enemy of the Greeks. Virtue is the power of getting silver and gold. And would you add that they must be gained piously, justly, or do you deem this to be of no consequence? And is any mode of acquisition, even if unjust and dishonest, equally to be deemed virtue? Not virtue, Socrates, but vice. So one of the things that Socrates is pointing out here is that no one would consider the mere power of obtaining goods like money and things like that, to be in itself good. It would have to be if you obtained them justly, if you obtained them rightly. I mean, if you had the power to steal money, that wouldn't be virtuous. But if you had the power, let's say, to earn money doing something lawful, maybe that would be virtuous, right? So Socrates says, then justice or temperance or holiness or some other part of virtue, as would appear, must accompany the acquisition. And without them, the mere acquisition of good will not be virtue. So at this point, Meno's definition has fallen apart. This is typical Socratic analysis where somebody defines something and Socrates says, well, that sounds promising, but let's take a closer look. And he shows the person the flaws and contradictions in their definition, and then they move on. I mean, that's what happens here at the end of this, right? Socrates, by showing up the confusions in Meno's definition of virtue, then says, okay, well, then begin again and answer me. What, according to you and your friend Gorgias, is the definition of virtue? So again, we can ask, what is Socrates doing? I mean, because we're 10 pages into it and we're pretty much at the same place that we started from, where Meno, at the beginning of the reading, asks this question about how to acquire virtue. Socrates says, I don't know what it is. So let's ask the fundamental question, what is virtue? Meno tries to define it. Socrates shows them that those definitions just won't work and says, well, okay, let's start again. What is virtue?